Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Unstoppable Dad Project. As you can probably tell, I've got a little bit of a voice thing going on here. We've had a young man who is a little bit sick in our house at the moment. Those of you that are listening that have kids know how that all goes down. So everyone else has kind of got it. So I'm going to do the best I can for the podcast this week. I almost canned it. I almost didn't do it just because I didn't want it to be of low quality. So if there's not much enthusiasm in my voice or it's a little bit crackly, that is why. So just before I get into the topic for the week, this week, I will be dropping the first week of our free 8-week program. I mentioned that on last week's episode. If you are intending on having a look at doing the program, please go back and listen to last week's episode, just because I go into some important bits of information, which I think not only applies to people who want to do this program, but really any generic training program that is out there on the market. And especially when it comes to dads, especially when it comes to busy parents or just busy professionals in general, I think it's really important to get some context around what you're doing. So go back and listen to last week's episode if you are intending to have a look at doing it. But the overall program will be up on our socials, so Instagram and Facebook, and then there will be more in-depth information that I will be publishing in the Facebook groups. All the links to those things will be in the show notes. So whether you're listening to this on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, or wherever it is, there are links to all of that stuff if you go into the show notes. And while you're there, please make sure you have subscribed and followed us on all the socials. All right. So this week, I just wanted to talk about saying no, because it's something that has come up a lot in my life, in the life of the clients and the people that I work with. And it's hard for us to say no. It's hard for us to say no to a lot of things in our life, let alone anything. I know there's been different periods in my life where I've said yes to a lot of things that I should have said no to. And what that has caused for me personally is it causes this feeling of overwhelm, because there is so much going on and so many moving parts, and a lot of those moving parts aren't actually adding any value to my life or to the people in my life. But this underlying guilt around letting people down forced me to say yes to a lot of things, and really caused me more problems than if I had have just said no and dealt with that guilt in the early stages. And I heard a line as I was reading a book, or read a line or heard a line. I do most of my books on audio book, but no is a full sentence. So you saying no to something, like, it's a full sentence. You can just say no. And for a lot of the times, no explanation is needed. And even though that may be perceived by the other person as selfish, it's not, because you have to look after yourself first. And one of the whole underlying themes that within the Unstoppable Dad Project is looking after yourself so you're able to help others more effectively. And it's something that as dads and as fathers, a lot of us don't do. We are so focused on looking after everyone else that we neglect ourselves. And sometimes, in order to prioritize that time for ourselves and look after ourselves, we have to start to say no to a lot of things. Now, I've kind of jotted down a few things and a few reasons around, for me, why I found it so hard to say no. And I believe that from working with quite a lot of people over the years, this is something that quite a lot of men, quite a lot of dads, and just quite a lot of people in general do struggle with. But first things first, like, one of the reasons why I I feel very hard to say no is it's that guilt of letting people down. Like, my inherent nature is to want to help people, and I will say yes to things, or I will say yes to helping somebody. I will say yes to doing something just out of that internal personal guilt of feeling, if I say no to this person, I feel like I'm letting them down. And as I said earlier on, by doing that, it loads more on my plate. So there's more things that I have to do. And it just creates this feeling of overwhelm, because then I start to lose time for maybe the things that are more important to me. And instead of just dealing with that internal guilt and saying no up front, I choose to take the easier road in the short term. And that ends up causing me more long term pain. And one of the things that I've identified when in those times in my life where I do find it hard to say no, it's when I haven't had a really clearly defined set of goals, or where I haven't understood what my priorities are for that time in my life. Now, I've done quite a few episodes talking about setting priorities and how that will help us with a hierarchy of decision making. And realistically, that all ties back into our ability to say no to things, because if we have a clearly defined set of goals and we understand what our priorities are, and we understand that hierarchy of priorities as it pertains to us, and this isn't for anyone else to tell you, this is for you to decide and you to understand within yourself. But if we understand that and we have that clearly defined set of goals, it means that as we make decisions on individual events or individual opportunities that we are presented with, it means that we're able to say yes to the things that align with our goals, with our priorities, and we're able to say no to those things that don't align with our priorities. So I know for me personally, when I have really struggled to say no to a lot of things, it has really been around making a decision because I haven't really have this clearly defined set of goals. It's almost like, I'm driving on a road with no fixed destination to go to. So you're turning left because you're not sure whether you should be turning left or right. You're at a fork in the road. So you say yes to going this way, and then you get semi of the way down the road, and it's like, oh shit, I shouldn't have gone this way. And then all of a sudden you do a U-turn, and then you're back to where you started. Now, this all feeds into that underlying thing of, if you have those clearly defined goals, and you understand within those goals, that allows you to set your priorities of how you're going to allocate your time, then you are able to work out the things that you can say yes and no to. And for me, I know in those times in my life where I've really struggled to say no, it has been due to me not really having a clearly defined goal or a clearly defined set of priorities in that phase of my life. And as I've spoken about on previous episodes, those priorities will shift over time. They will change. They will mold. They may stay the same for a long period of time. But one thing is for certain, and this is a very cliche thing to say, but the only constant in life is change. Things will always change. As our kids grow up, we're going to have to allocate different time to different things, because for a lot of us, family's that number one priority, right? But the one thing that makes it a little bit easier for me through this phase in my life to say no to certain things and no to certain opportunities that I'm presented with is saying no to things in my life means that I can say yes to myself a little bit more. And I can say yes to those things that are very important to me. I can say yes to extra time with the family. I can say yes to extra training time by saying no to external circumstances that in the past, when I don't have that clearly defined set of goals and that clearly defined decision-making process that aligns with those goals and aligns with my priorities, it makes it very hard to say no, because I don't have a hierarchy, I don't have a structure, and I don't have a process to do it. Now, that may make everything sound very stale and very regimented, but sometimes if you're struggling to say no to things, you need to strip it right back and make it a little bit more regimented and stale and a little bit less emotional. And sometimes it's hard when opportunities are presented with you to say no to things if you are struggling, because one thing for me in the past that I have struggled with, like through times of, let's say, financial stress, I will say yes to some things and some things that come up, thinking that it's going to potentially cure or solve the position that I'm in, when what I should really be doing is saying no to that and focusing on the core things over here that maybe within we're struggling with. And this is a little bit ambiguous. It's not really going into, I guess, specifics, but if I give you an example, some people that I've worked with will say yes to like every single thing that's presented in front of them, like yes to every single coaching program they'll do a fitness program over here, they'll do a business program over here, they'll do this program over here, and they'll do all these different things. And what that does is it doesn't allow them to actually focus on doing any one thing. But what they're doing by saying yes to everything, or what they think they're doing, is they think that if I just fire off a whole bunch of shots in the area, one of them is going to hit a target and that's going to solve the problem. And in fact, what it does is it exacerbates the problem because they're doing too much. They're not able to focus on one thing. It creates that feeling of overwhelm. And it all comes down to them not understanding, what do I actually want to achieve right now in my life? Like, what is this clearly defined goal? How and do these decisions align with my values at this current point in time? Is it going to give me time to allocate to the other priorities I want? Like, what's the most important thing for me right now? And maybe it's not that the fitness program right now is the thing for them. Maybe they need to do, if they're a small business owner, maybe they need to do a business course and put everything into doing that. And if they put everything into doing that, then eventually on the other side of it, it will open up time to potentially then go and focus on this thing. So by saying yes to everything and yes to a lot of things, for me, what I have struggled with in the past, when I struggle to say no to things, is it all comes down to me not understanding and not having a clearly defined set of goals. If I can get that right and I can understand what is important to me at that particular given time and what my priorities are at that given time and how much time I need to allocate to those things, it makes the process of saying no to things a lot easier. There's still going to be the guilt there of letting people down. You're still going to feel like, you're still going to potentially feel guilty. You're still going to need to deal with that feeling. However, it does make it easier because it's like, right, I'm focused over here. This doesn't align with where I want to go over here. So I'm just going to and it might not be a no forever. It might be a no for now, but I'm just going to put that on the back burner for now so I can focus all my energy and attention into this particular goal or into this particular set of circumstances that aligns with the values I have at this point in my life. So no is a full sentence. You can say no to something and that can be it. You don't need to justify why you say no to it. You may not quite know whether it is something you should say no to or not. And if you don't know, sit down and work through, like, what's important to me right now? What do I really want to achieve? That's something for you to work out. That's not something for anybody else to work out, right? That is for you to sit down and work that out. And by doing that, you can then understand what your priorities are right now. And then you can prioritize, hey, what are the things I need to say yes to more? So, and then these are the things that, I need to say no to, because by saying no to some things, you can say yes to yourself. You can put yourself in front. You can hopefully take away that feeling of overwhelm that you may be feeling because you've committed to too much. And then you can start to move yourself forward and hopefully enjoy the process around the things that you have said yes to that align with your values and your goals a little bit more. All right, that is it for this week. No is a full sentence. Again, don't forget, I am going to drop that 8-week program on our socials and and all the other information in our groups. Sorry for the voice. Hopefully that episode was of some value to you guys. Let me know if anyone would like to book in a chat, talk about any of our paid training programs. There is a link in the show notes for you to book in and jump on a call with me at some point. All right. Thanks, team. Have a great week. We'll see you next week. Bye.